Now joining us, Robert Weisman. He is the president of Public Citizen. Robert, welcome to the Young Turks.
Good to be with you.
Great to have you here. So tell us first, what is Public Citizen?
Public Citizen is a Washington, D.C. based consumer and environmental organization, but beyond that we really try to take on big picture questions of relating to political economy, really the big questions of corporate power.
And I'm curious, you guys are taking on corporate power. Not a lot of money in that, I would imagine. So where do you get your funding?
Yeah, that wasn't, people who work for us didn't go in for the salary. We have a lot of members. We've got about 150,000 members and supporters, so we get a little bit online. We get more from the old direct mail. We try to do okay with foundations and pick up money here and there.
How do the foundations work? I'm just curious because I think you're doing something very important, and I want to see how it gets done, on the ground level.
Well, there's a range of foundations. There's sort of the big, major establishment foundations that are willing to support some progressive activity, like the Ford Foundation. There's a lot of smaller family foundations and things in between. And in a better world, we think we'd be getting a ton of foundation money because they'd be so impressed with the quality of our work. But in fact, the quality of your work is a factor, but sometimes a tiny factor in how much funding you get, and it's really a matter of developing relationships with people at the foundations and selling them on what you're doing and why it fits with whatever they define as their mission.
I got you. And so now I think that there couldn't be a more useful time for Public Citizen, because I keep calling corporate America the Borg because I think they've taken over everything. They've taken over the courts. They've taken over our politicians. But they've taken over so many things. How do you begin to fight back?
Well, it's one thing at a time. And at the end of the day, the story is narrow, concentrated corporate power and the massive financial resources they're able to mobilize against people power, and can we bring enough people together to counter what they do? Sometimes we traffic in the realm of the esoteric like that. We tend to be much more engaged in very specific issues and try to take them on one thing at a time. So we're very involved, for example, right now in the financial reform debate and trying to get through Congress some tools to rein in Wall Street. We're involved in the healthcare debate. We're trying to push a single-payer agenda, and we're trying to deal right now with a ruling from the Supreme Court known as Citizens United that threatens to enhance corporate powers dramatically in this country going forward for the foreseeable future.
We're talking to Robert Weisman. He's the president of Public Citizen. So first, how do you prioritize, Robert? What do you think is the most important issue in fighting corporate power and its influence in our politics?
Well, there's definitely no silver bullet. It is, as you say, and the corporate power is so pervasive. Anybody thinks they have the solution, by definition, doesn't, because there is no one solution. You can look at different sectors. There's approaches to displace corporations from control over different industries. The single-payer Medicare for All approach, for example, for health insurance, really says let's just eliminate the for-profit health insurance industry. That's one way to reduce corporate power. You can try to change the structure of industry, so you can go after Wall Street and the big banks, for example, by saying the problem is there's too much concentrated power and too much, in the case of Wall Street, mixing of different functions that should be separated. So we want to break up the big banks and make sure that commercial banks, for example, aren't engaged in the speculative activity that was traditionally associated with investment banking. And there's still a role for traditional kinds of regulation, although the corporations are so good at evading regulation that we worry about that as a strategy. And finally, there are questions about how you bring people together to have standing organizations to counter corporate power. Unions is an example, consumer organizations is another, and so on.
So let's get specific then. Let's take let's take financial reform.
Yep.
How do you do it? How do you engage in that fight? Do you go to the senators and the congressmen? And if so, how do you approach them? How do you get through to them, et cetera?
Yeah, we have lobbyists, so we do the visits and meet with the congressional staff meet with the staff on the committees, who are the ones who usually are the ones playing the critical role writing bills. We meet with the members of Congress and senators, key people in the administration. So there's that piece of it. There's a big issue about how to affect the media and get attention to the issues that we're working on, and trying to make sure that the media is framing the issues in ways that make sense and drive the agenda forward. We are, in the case of financial reform, involved with a large coalition called Americans for Financial Reform that includes a couple hundred organizations, for everything from big labor unions to small community groups, trying to put forward a common agenda to restrain Wall Street power. And as you may not be surprised to guess, we're facing an uphill fight. The Wall Street and financial interests have spent about $500 million lobbying in the last couple of years, so they're over $1 million a member of Congress, and we don't quite have those resources to bring. So the trick for us is to mobilize the public.
That gets to a very important question. I mean, I couldn't want you to succeed any more than I already do. But I'm afraid that when you're talking to a senator, they're going to be like, well, this guy, he represents the people. Who cares? I mean, you don't donate any money to him. Why would they take you seriously?
Well, it's a mix. I mean, a lot of people are fairly decent. They have mixed motivations, even if they want money. But at the sort of more crass level that you're raising the issue, they do care about money, but even more than money, they care about votes. Money helps them get votes to get reelected, but votes are the ultimate currency that keeps them in office. So to the extent
How do you threaten their votes?
Well, given our nonprofit status, we don't talk about their votes, but I think the idea is that we are representative of a pretty considerable portion of public opinion, and we publicize how people come down, and that you take positions that people support. I mean, in the Wall Street, the financial reform debate is a really good one. Everybody really across the political spectrum is fairly united against Wall Street outside of Washington and outside of Manhattan. So you're either with Wall Street or you're against Wall Street, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences of what you do come election time.
I don't think that's true at all. I think they won't deal with the consequences because they'll have a bipartisan sellout. They're already beginning that process. And I think the Obama legislation is incredibly weak. I think the House version is weaker, and the Senate version is even weaker than that. And they're probably going to water that down to get some Republican support. And in the end, they'll pretend that they fixed it, and they won't fix it at all.
Well, I mean, there's a possible scenario, but if you go in with the theory that it's a not unlikely scenario, but if you go in with the theory that it's hopeless, then you've got nothing to do and you didn't achieve anything.
All right, so tell me, Rob, give me hope.
Give me hope. You got to go ahead and do it.
No, give me hope. Give me hope, because I'm feeling really hopeless these days. How in the world do you fix maybe my analysis is wrong. If it is, please tell me. If it's not, how do we win?
Well, look, I mean, I think to continue the strain of your critical and negative analysis, I think we've missed a big opportunity by we being this progressive movement in general. In September 2008, when the financial markets crashed and the bailout was first put into place, there was an outpouring of angry opposition that registered in Washington like nothing that's taken place in the last 30 years. Members of Congress reported getting called 100 to 1 against the bailout, and that was probably generous to Wall Street. So this huge anger, but there was no organization, including my own, unfortunately, that was really positioned at the time to capitalize on that, to absorb, to bring people in, bring people together, and say, okay, that's right, you're right to be opposed to this, and here is the thing, here's the way we all stay together, and here's the set of things we have to ask for positively going forward. So besides just uniting around no, we had to have a series of things to unite around yes. So I think the challenge for us now is there's still obviously huge amounts of anger, and we have to try to bring it together as best we can. I think we missed a big window on it. I think it's still not hopeless, and I also think it's not, on some of the most important issues, it's not necessarily done when this round of financial reform is done.
Yeah. Robert, we didn't miss the opportunity because we weren't there. Obama, Geithner, et cetera, aren't we. They're they. And
I'm not saying that's not my we.
You're right.
That's not my we. No, I'm talking critically about progressive movement, and that we did miss the opportunity, and I include my own organization in it.
Right.
We have to be ready when people are looking for leadership and really uniting around an absolutely progressive position, we have to be ready to provide it.
All right, so then let's talk about that.
I'm not talking about the administration at all.
I hear you on that, and you're right. I shouldn't misinterpret it like that. Robert Weisman is the president of Public Citizens. So how do you put yourself in that position? So let's say that the next collapse happens, which I think it will happen. The right wing is already mobilized. They've already laid the groundwork and said, oh, it's the government's fault, it's the government's fault, it's the Democrats' fault, and they interfered with the banks too much. Okay, but look, that sounds preposterous, but they've got their believers believing it, right? And Fox News is amazing at it. And so they think the best answer is to give the corporations more power. And it's mind-boggling, but it's working, right? So they get the Tea Party idiots to get out there and do pro-corporate rallies in healthcare, for example, and they'll get them to do it on finance, too, and go Wall Street. I don't know, is it that we don't have money? Is it that we lack the proper organization? How come there aren't equal and opposite protests telling American people the reality? How come they're not happening right now about finance reform as they're talking about how the finance reform is going to get structured in the Senate right now?
Well, there are rallies actually going on across the country right now and throughout April. And they're not getting the same kind of attention. They don't quite have the same oppositional spirit. There are a variety of reasons. You are correct in identifying that people have a hard time figuring how to position against it or in the context of the Obama administration. Fox News as an organizing entity, not just a media entity, is an unparalleled attribute for Tea Party and other sort of bizarre right-wing formations. I don't think, when we get your show as influential as Fox News, then we'll be there.
So it's my fault. No, I'm kidding. No, you're right. I hope so.
No, and we organizations have to be ready to do too. I think part of it is framing the issues really cleanly. The financial reform thing unites people against Wall Street. The danger is getting involved in really complicated issues because they are complicated. If you make them technical and difficult, they can be. But also the abstractions and the higher level talking points are also right and exactly convey what people think, and they are right. So if you say break up the banks, clamp down on the out-of-control pay, tax speculation, you have identified three of the most important things to do, and people overwhelmingly support all three of those things.
No, okay, so Robert, I'm sorry, let's burrow down even to further detail, because I think, I think your mission is so important, and I desperately want it to succeed. We do a talk show. I can take sides. I take your side, okay? So the Americans for Prosperity, et cetera, those fake grassroots movements that are funded by the right wing, they bring the buses, they bring the donuts, they bring the signs, and they take the Tea Party guys and they funnel their anger and they go, all right, go, attack in favor of corporations. Okay, now how do we do it in reverse? How do we organize people and draw attention to it enough? I mean, sure, I hope our show gets bigger and we can organize people better, et cetera, but there's got to be a way. I mean, is it a frontal assault on the media saying they're completely biased against you, that they're not covering the protests? Is it to make the protests larger? Is it to have more buses? What's the answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's the last. At the end of the day, that's it. We have to figure out ways to get people out on the streets. And there are some things that make it harder for us. But, geez, if the left can't out-organize the right in protests, then what are we crying about? I mean, that's our strength. If we can't match them for getting people out on the streets, then we got nothing to complain about. That's our failure.
Yeah. What's stopping us? I mean, and I'm asking that as a little question. Like, what's our downsides? What's impeding our progress in that front?
Well, I think the key things are what I said. I mean, on financial reform or other things, I think it's a weird thing for people, for big portions of the progressive community to figure out how to deal with the Obama administration. It's easier to protest when you're clearly against, and people don't want to say we're against the administration. And in fact, I think on financial reform, unlike say healthcare, it's a little mixed from the administration, but people are very uncomfortable being even at all critical and getting out in the streets. And we can work around that we have a pretty clear enemy in the case of financial reform, which is in the private sector, Wall Street, and we can mobilize around that. But the context of the administration makes protests pretty difficult for people right now.
Yeah, that's it. No, you nailed it. It's that progressives aren't going to take on Obama. God, corporate America picked You know, I hate to say this, and I'm not putting it all on Obama, but they picked the perfect guy to do their bidding at this point, okay? Because it totally neutralizes the people who would normally be angry that we're not doing real reform. Because, oh, he's our guy. Oh, no, we can't protest against him. But his reform isn't real reform, and it's going to lead to another collapse. I mean, checkmate. You see why I'm pessimistic, Robert?
Well, I mean, I live here in Washington. It's hard to stay optimistic, but, to be too pessimistic is disempowering. You got to see, you have to understand the obstacles, but still see the opportunities and take your best shot.
Yeah,
if it doesn't work out this time, you try again.
Yeah.
I do think on financial reform we're going to win some important things. It's possible to win some great things, but unlikely. But I don't think that it ends after this round. The Senate is likely to either do something or not do something in the next couple months, and then it gets through, and that's the end of it for this round. But I don't think issues, actually the three that I mentioned, I don't think are going away. I don't think the issue about oversized banks and Wall Street firms is going away. I don't think issues about out-of-control pay are going away. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest in the idea of taxing speculation as a way to raise money and reduce and shrink the casino economy.
All right, we're out of time, but let me just wrap up by saying I don't want the audience to get me wrong. I don't want you to get me wrong, Robert. I'm pessimistic short term. I'm optimistic long term. But what we have to do is we have to have the courage to take on Democrats, because the Democrats, make those corporate deals while pretending to be on your side better than anybody does. Okay. And you have to be ferocious in your opposition, and we have to raise money and spend that ferociously. Meaning, if a Democrat or a Republican is in favor of the banks and they make a deal to help them, or in favor of the drug companies and they make a deal to help them, we need to spend ads to tear their ass down. We need to come to their house, okay? And I don't mean that obviously in a physical sense. I mean in a ferocious political sense. And the right wing has no problem doing that. And the left wing, I don't see it. We need to get 1,000,000 times tougher than we are.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do the electoral piece, so that's not our piece, but I completely agree with the sentiment. And it is the case on some of these, things have been too rigidly defined and too much caught up in some of this ideological stuff, because there are populist anti-corporate traditions, among Republicans and among conservatives. We have to tap that, and in the same way, there are competing traditions on the Democratic side as well. And the business traditions have to be attacked, and the populist traditions have to be stoked.
All right, Robert Weisman, president of Public Citizen, very important organization trying to fight the good fight. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.